Hello and welcome to Curated Classics, the channel that shares the most famous and popular stories from books, films, and history in quick summaries so that you can learn the classics quickly without hours of reading or years of expensive courses. Today, you are listening to A Tale of Two Cities, a historical novel by Charles Dickens set during the French Revolution. The story follows Charles Darnay, a French aristocrat, and Sidney Carton, an English lawyer, along with their loved ones in London and Paris. The novel explores themes of love, sacrifice, resurrection, and justice, as well as the effects of political upheaval on individuals. Darnay is falsely accused of treason, but is acquitted, only to be arrested again in revolutionary France. Carton, who is secretly in love with Darnay's wife Lucy, sacrifices his life by taking Darnay's place in prison, allowing the family to escape to England. The novel is a powerful examination of social inequality, mob mentality, and the redemptive power of love and sacrifice. For a more in-depth understanding of the book, we will now provide a chapter-by-chapter breakdown. Chapter 1. The Period. The novel opens with a description of the social and political climate in London and Paris in 1775. The famous line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," captures the contrasting experiences of the two cities. Chapter 2. The Mail. Jarvis Lorry, an employee of Tellson's Bank, is travelling from London to Dover to meet Lucy Manette. He has a cryptic conversation with a mysterious messenger named Jerry Cruncher, who brings a message from the bank, recalled to life. Chapter 3. The Night Shadows. The narrative briefly explores the lives and thoughts of various unnamed characters, emphasizing the secrecy and intrigue of the time. Chapter 4. The Preparation. Lorry reaches Dover and meets Lucy Manette, informing her that her father, Dr. Alexandre Manette, is alive after being imprisoned for 18 years in the Bastille. Lorry tells Lucy that they must travel to Paris to bring her father back to England. Chapter 5. The Wine Shop. The story shifts to a dark room in a wine shop in Paris where Monsieur and Madame Defarge are introduced. Madame Defarge is a key figure in the upcoming French Revolution. The chapter ends with a vivid description of the poverty and despair in the Parisian streets, foreshadowing the unrest that will lead to the revolution. Chapter 6. The Shoemaker. Lorry and Lucy travel to Paris, where they are guided by the Defarges to a small room above the wine shop. There they find Dr. Manette, who has been making shoes to cope with his imprisonment. Dr. Manette appears to be in a state of mental decay, initially failing to recognize his own daughter. Chapter 7. Monseigneur in Town. The chapter introduces the Marquis Saint-Evrémonde, a cruel French aristocrat who is later revealed to be Charles Darnay's uncle. The Marquis's indifference to the plight of the common people highlights the social inequality and injustice that will fuel the revolution. Chapter 8. Monseigneur in the Country. The Marquis Saint-Evrémonde travels through the French countryside, where his carriage runs over and kills a child. He shows no remorse and offers the grieving father a coin as compensation. Gaspard, the child's father, curses the Marquis and swears vengeance. Chapter 9. The Gorgon's Head. The Marquis Saint-Evrémonde arrives at his chateau and awaits the arrival of his nephew, Charles Darnay. The chateau is described as an oppressive, decaying place, symbolizing the decline of the aristocracy. The chapter ends with the Marquis's murder by Gaspard, who sought revenge for his child's death. Chapter 10. Two Promises. In London, Charles Darnay is now working as a French tutor. He visits Dr. Manette and Lucy, who have settled into a new life in England. Darnay, feeling guilty about his aristocratic heritage and the actions of his family, asks for Dr. Manette's forgiveness and promises to reveal his true identity on the day of his marriage to Lucia. The chapter highlights the developing relationships among the main characters. Chapter 11. A Companion Picture. Sidney Carton becomes a regular visitor at the Manette household, though he is often moody and despondent. He and Charles Darnay engage in a discussion about their respective lives, with Carton admitting his wasted potential and acknowledging that he envies Darnay's purpose and accomplishments. Chapter 12. The Fellow of Delicacy. Mr. Stryver, Carton's legal partner, decides to propose to Lucy Manette. However, he first consults Jarvis Lorry, who tactfully convinces Stryver that the match would not be suitable. Stryver reluctantly accepts Lorry's advice, and the proposal never takes place. Chapter 13. The Fellow of No Delicacy. In contrast to Stryver, Sidney Carton visits Lucy and candidly confesses his love for her, despite knowing that she does not reciprocate his feelings. He vows to do anything for her or anyone she loves, foreshadowing his future sacrifice. Chapter 14. The Honest Tradesman. The chapter focuses on Jerry Cruncher, who is revealed to be a resurrection man, grave robber, who digs up corpses to sell to medical schools. Cruncher is disturbed when a body he has dug up turns out to be empty, leading him to question the nature of his work. Chapter 15. Knitting. Back in France, the Marquis Saint Evremonde's chateau is burned down by the local villagers. Meanwhile, in Paris, the Defarges and their fellow revolutionaries prepare for the upcoming revolt. Madame Defarge knits a register of those marked for death in the revolution, weaving their names into her work. Chapter 16. Still knitting. The Defarges take in a road mender who witnessed the Marquis Saint Evremonde's murder. Through his account, it is revealed that the murderer is a man named Gaspard, whose child was killed by the Marquis' carriage. Gaspard is later captured and executed, further fueling the rage of the French peasantry. Chapter 17. One night. Dr. Manette is now a respected physician in the neighborhood, and Charles Darnay has become a French tutor. Darnay and Lucy's love continues to grow. One evening, Darnay approaches Dr. Manette and privately reveals his true identity as a member of the Evremonde family. Dr. Manette, initially shocked, asks Darnay to keep this secret from Lucy until the day of their wedding. Chapter 18. 9 days. After learning Darnay's secret, Dr. Manette has a relapse and returns to his old habit of shoemaking. This episode lasts for 9 days, during which Lucy remains by his side, providing comfort and support. Dr. Manette eventually recovers with no memory of his relapse. Chapter 19. An opinion. Worried about Dr. Manette's health, Jarvis Lorry consults with him about the cause of his relapse. Dr. Manette admits that he does not remember anything about those 9 days, but agrees to let Lorry dispose of his shoemaking tools to prevent future episodes. Chapter 20. A plea. Charles Darnay asks for Dr. Manette's blessing to marry Lucia. Dr. Manette grants his consent, though he seems troubled. Darnay attempts to tell Dr. Manette his real name, but Manette insists that Darnay wait until the morning of the wedding to reveal it to him again. Chapter 21. Echoing footsteps. This chapter foreshadows the impending French Revolution with descriptions of the growing discontent and violence in France. Meanwhile, in England, Darnay and Lucy are married and Sidney Carton attends the wedding breakfast. Chapter 22. The sea still rises. In France, the violence escalates, and the Defarges become more involved in revolutionary activities. Foulon, a hated government official, is captured and executed by the mob. The chapter serves to emphasize the brutality and chaos of the coming revolution. Chapter 23. Fire rises. The chapter opens with a description of hunger and poverty in France. The vengeful villagers burn down the Marquis Saint Evremonde's chateau in response to the injustices perpetrated by the aristocracy. The chateau's destruction foreshadows the widespread destruction that will accompany the revolution. Chapter 24. Drawn to the Lodestone Rock. 3 years have passed since Lucy and Charles' wedding, and they now have a daughter named Lucy. Charles receives a letter from a former family servant, Gabel, who has been imprisoned by revolutionaries. Feeling responsible for his plight, Darnay decides to go to France to help Gabel, despite the danger of revealing his true identity as an aristocrat. Chapter 25. The Wood Sawyer. Lucy, Jarvis Lorry, and little Lucy move into an apartment near the prison, where they can see Darnay's cell window. Lucy stands outside every day in the hope that Darnay will see her. A wood sawyer, who is also a revolutionary, takes an interest in their activities, keeping an unsettling watch over them. Chapter 26. The Tribunal. Dr. Manette's influence among the revolutionaries secures a trial for Darnay. At the trial, Darnay is charged with being an emigrant and an enemy of the revolution. Dr. Manette speaks on his behalf, recounting his own suffering as a prisoner of the Bastille. Moved by his testimony, the tribunal acquits Darnay, and he is released. Chapter 27. A Hand at Cards. Barsad visits the wine shop, where he is confronted by Sidney Carton, who has arrived in Paris. Carton exposes Bassad's true identity as a spy and blackmails him into helping with a plan to save Darnay, whose life is still in danger. Chapter 28. The Shadow. Jerry Cruncher is sent to Paris by Jarvis Lorry to deliver a message. He is followed by a mysterious figure later revealed to be John Bassad, a.k.a. Solomon Pross, Miss Pross' brother and a spy. This chapter connects to an earlier part of the novel when Cruncher is first followed by the figure. Chapter 29. The Substance of the Shadow. This chapter delves into Dr. Manette's past through a letter he wrote during his time in the Bastille. The letter reveals that the Evrémonde brothers, Darnay's father and uncle, were responsible for imprisoning Dr. Manette. They had him locked away to cover up their heinous crimes, including the rape and murder of a peasant girl and the murder of her brother. Chapter 30. The Word of the Wood, Sawyer. The Wood Sawyer tells Madame Defarge about Lucy's daily ritual of standing near the prison. Upon hearing this, Madame Defarge decides that Lucy, little Lucy, and Dr. Manette must also pay for their connection to the Evrémonde family. The revolutionary fervour grows more dangerous, putting the entire Manette family at risk. Chapter 31. The Sea Rises. Charles Darnay is once again arrested. As a result of a denunciation by the Defarges and one other individual, Dr. Manette attempts to use his influence again, but the situation becomes even more dangerous. Chapter 32. The Tribunal again. Darnay faces the tribunal for the second time, and Dr. Manette's letter, written during his time in the Bastille, is read aloud. The letter reveals the crimes of the Evrémonde family, and the tribunal sentences Darnay to death. Chapter 33. The Knitting Done. Madame Defarge, determined to eliminate the entire Manette family, visits Lucy to gather information. Miss Pross, Lucy's loyal servant, confronts her, and the two women engage in a fierce struggle. Madame Defarge is accidentally killed by her own gun during the altercation. Chapter 34. The footsteps die out forever. Sidney Carton, with the help of John Barsad, infiltrates the prison where Darnay is being held. He drugs Darnay and switches places with him, ultimately sacrificing his life to save Darnay and fulfill his promise to Lucy. Darnay, disguised as Carton, escapes with his family, while Carton faces the guillotine. Chapter 35. The Night of the New Day. Carton goes to the guillotine, making peace with his decision to die for the love of Lucy and her family. In his final moments, he envisions a better future for the people of France and for those he leaves behind. Thanks for listening to Curated Classics. If you enjoyed this story and it provided valuable insights, we hope you will give this video a like by clicking the thumbs up, sharing it with other lifelong learners, and please check out more of the greatest stories throughout history on the Curated Classics channel. See you next time.